So, welcome to Victoria 3, where in this video I became a kingpin, dominating the vast agricultural industry, specifically opium, like lots and lots of opium. And our journey begins as the grand United States of America, being led by Andrew Jackson. I mean, nothing bad is going to happen in this video, right? So, one of our first opening moves is annexing one of our puppets to consolidate American territory, thus gaining access to their population and whatever military resources that they may have. Then after that, under the leadership of Andrew Jackson, where you see we declared interest in the Asian region, specifically where the Great Qing is, and Dainam. But before we properly moved in on the region, we formed the American Cartel, a trade league with the main focus on exports. And as the first act of this new organization, it demanded the capital of Dainam. And unfortunately, the nation had to be convinced through an alternate form of persuasion. Now, the main reason why we're taking Dainam's capital is for the simple fact that it produces opium. And we want to become the #1 producer in the world, outproducing the British East India Company, where we can then ship our product all across the world for a dirt cheap price where we can then make bank. Now, partially down to the fact that I was a little bit greedy, we made a demand to the Great Qing to hand over one of their states, which has well over 1 million people living there, and on top of that has the potential to have at least over 100 opium plantations. And right after when we finish up our war against Dainam, we then get ready to fight the Great Qing, who ultimately hand over the land to us because they are busy dealing with the British. After that, we would begin one of the largest agricultural expansions within the region of Asia, spending millions of dollars to ultimately outproduce the East India Company. And after when I remember to build a port to properly ship these goods all around the world, I then go over to my budget to readjust my taxes because currently we do not have a government and I am currently taxing everyone to the max. I mean, hey, construction is not cheap, especially within the economy that I've created. After we set up the port and began to start making some money off of our opium plantations, we began to think about further expansion into the Great Qing's territory, to then gain access to further land so that way we can begin to produce other products that we could sell on the global market. And so, by order of Congress on December 27th, 1844, there was a demand sent to the Great Qing demanding more of their territory. And obviously, they would refuse, and this begins the first armed war between the United States and the Great Qing. As thousands of soldiers began to mobilize onto the front lines, the bodies would begin to stack, with both the Qing and the Americans taking heavy casualties. And this war would last from April 6, 1845, and would end on September 12, 1848, where we then gained new land in southern China and a bit of Manchuria. During this time, as we continued to expand our massive agricultural industry, a civil war was brewing back home from the pro-slaver movement as I tried to ban slavery. And after dealing with one of the smallest American civil wars I think I've seen in this game, we managed to ban slavery around 1850 and defeat the secessionist movement in the South, thus allowing for the Reconstruction era to begin as we become the primary producer of opium in the world. And due to this, we decided to further expand our influence within the Great Qing by taking more territory, even Beijing itself. However, unlike the last war, this one will be far more bloody and brutal, as roughly around 1 million troops would mobilize to the South China front. On top of that, American forces would abandon Manchuria in order to help out on the South China front. The plan was, due to our superior firepower compared to that of the Qing, alongside our relatively large population, we would be able to overwhelm enemy forces, and right around Christmas, or at least next year, the war would be finished. And so, on May 15th, 1855, the first shots would be fired, and thus begins the Second American War. 6 long years it took to win this war. It would have probably gone on longer if the British hadn't interfered for their own goals, which to this day their primary goals during this war are still unknown. However, on May 30th, 1861, the Treaty of Beijing would be signed. And due to how brutal that war was, ultimately the United States of America would cease all further expansion within the Great Qing, because now was the time of major economic recovery as the United States was spiraling into debt, causing similar events of the Great Depression only to happen 68 years earlier.